Hello, my name's Oliver and I'm an ordinand and also a filmmaker. In 2022 I made a short film about St Cuthbert, and this February I released another short film called Then as Now, which was about the Lord's Prayer and the Northern Saints, and that was for faith in the North. So I'm very interested in our Northern Saints, particularly St Cuthbert, and the way that I feel he and many other figures from our spiritual past continue to speak into our world and our culture today. This communion of saints who care for us deeply within our own walk with Christ in the spiritual life. So I'd like to take you on a quick journey with me, a miniature pilgrimage, if you will. I'd like you to paint a picture. I'd like to paint you a picture of where this all began for me. At first, and I've said this to I've done a few talks like this. At first, my own interest could seem like quite a niche sort of churchy interest, but actually, I only came to faith in my mid-20s, never having grown up around churches as a child. Still, it could seem like a historical interest, saints, figures from old stained glass windows, or icons. And so I'd like to share how this happened for me, of how this all came to be. And the journey I'd like to briefly share, I think, reflects a universal issue. That is about how we as modern people connect again with the eternal, here and now. Of how we connect despite our busyness, our phones, our non-stop lives, of how we connect with God. A God whom those who came before us all knew to be present in a sense, but a God that certainly many of our loved ones, our friends and families might now feel has gone away, is somehow less present than he used to be. And yet the Christian insistence is that he hasn't left us, but will be with us until the end of the age. So in early 2022, I found myself out on a little boat, deep in the haze and the fog. And I was floating between the small port of Seahouses in Northumberland and the windswept rocky island of Inner Farne, the home of St Cuthbert. It's not far away from Lindisfarne or Holy Island. So I was travelling there with my wife Bonnie on a boat full of bird watchers, and it was the day that profoundly changed me. Because within about 5 minutes of leaving the harbour, my woolly hat and scarf firmly on, I suddenly found myself in the midst of an experience I've never had before. An experience that I didn't even know was possible for me. I could see next to nothing, save for the teal blue waters around me, so flat and peaceful, and the puffins were swooping in and out of the fog as we went. And picture the scene, if you will, of total calm on the water, but surrounded by mist all around. And I'm using no dramatic license here when I say that in that moment, on that boat, I felt that I'd suddenly left time itself. There was nothing I needed to do or say, and it wasn't a vision, a waking dream, because I could hear the children and the people's cameras still clicking at the birds. I was firmly awake, but I felt something akin to being in heaven on earth. St. Irenaeus famously wrote, "The glory of God is a human being fully alive." And I was certainly alive. I felt my lungs breathed in a clearer, purer air than before, despite the fact that I could see nothing beyond a few meters. And so the journey to the island was about 20 minutes all in all, and the veiled sun seemed to illuminate the ripples of fog in the cold April air. I could see neither where we'd been nor where we were going, and I didn't need to, because in that very moment I felt a joy that goes beyond all joy, a contentment and peace that, if I may say, for me passed all understanding. And as the grey cliffs took shape through the mist, with the chapel of St Cuthbert emerging atop the rock, as though emerging through clouds of incense, I saw for myself, for the first time, all of reality shine in a way that I'd really been blind to before. It was the first time for me that heaven met the earth. our our earth, where we live, as though the lights came flooding back in, and the spirits returned, and that the world around me wasn't merely a resource, a cold thing, and that life wasn't a series of cause and effect incidents, but that everything mattered. And ultimately, that the stories were true and the adventures are real. I suddenly saw that I was there together with my wife Bonnie, within a story myself, on a pilgrimage myself, in a world soaked in meaning and a place for us all. And so for me, it was Saint Cuthbert, this remarkable soul who became the guide that drew me into this experience I was having. And it wasn't an experience to nature for its own sake, as wonderful as nature is, but to see nature alive with significance and sanctified, a creation imbued with divine grace because of those who'd graced it, where all things connect in an ongoing story that we're all part of. And so I was already a Christian. This isn't a sort of coming to faith story, but it is a story, I believe, of re-enchantment. And we hear that word enchantment around a lot, I think, these days. And I was and have, I believe, been thoroughly re-enchanted. Because the modern world is wonderful, isn't it? With its science and its great conveniences, but with only materialistic ways of knowing, we have lost something. Something which I believe can be presented again to people in a weary age. And we hear about the popularity of pilgrimages kind of on the up at the moment. And so I found that thing that I feel we've lost again. I found it on the mist-laden waters around St. Cuthbert's Island. And I've since become a father to two small children, but have tried to keep the adventure, the pilgrimage alive in my own busy life. When our firstborn, Elizabeth, came, we decided to go up to Iona in Western Scotland when she was only a month old, which was a bit nuts, but it was beautiful nonetheless, and experiencing that there with her, despite the busyness and the hectic pace of life as new parents, it was a joy just to have a moment there in that special place. Iona, of course, is following where Saint Aidan enters England's Christian story. From there, he goes down to Lindisfarne and founds the monastery there on Holy Island. I followed St Hilda of Whitby's footsteps from Hartlepool to Whitby to those iconic ruins, and more recently I've been to Walsingham to explore what later Anglo-Saxon devotion bequeathed to us in looking to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And many of these places are known as thin places. I'm sure we've all heard that term, where the veil between heaven and earth seems thinner. And for me, pilgrimage shows something that I feel has been sort of neglected in a lot of our modern expressions of faith. Namely, that our faith in the person of Christ shows us heaven meeting the earth. There's a sense that the earth is being transfigured by the incarnation, sanctified by God, incarnate in Jesus Christ, but then in turn by his saints in the outward working life of the church. The names mentioned today, the names that I've mentioned, most prominently St. Cuthbert. Of course, Cuthbert is a regular person in a way, but through God's grace, he came to participate in the life of God. And I believe, for me, he became a vehicle of God's grace in the world, which we're all called to do in our own way. So heaven meets the earth. Our spirit meets matter. And in an age of very materialistically focused outlooks, where our society really just focuses on matter itself, just the things that make up the world, I feel places of pilgrimage offer a real tangible way to connect again with something deeper. There's a deeper meaning in the rocks around Innerfarn, in the sea in the tide coming up against the sand on Holy Island. And this deeper reality that it calls us into, this divine life that it invites us into. These are places, and perhaps you have your own places where you go, that feel special, that feel deeply enchanted, if I may use that word in a positive sense. And they show to us the beauty, the reality of God moving amongst us. So thank you for listening. I hope some of this has been helpful, and may God bless the remainder of your day. Thank you.